This is Get Real with Bob and Stacy, the show that helps you learn about the mortgage and real estate markets. Get the inside scoop from their expert list of guests and have some fun along the way. Now, here's Bob Gallagher and Stacy Alcorn.
Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacy. You're joining us for our Leaders and Legends segment. And our first guest today is serial entrepreneur Ed Foy. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Bob, Stacy, thank you. My pleasure.
So to give everybody some background on Edward, he is a serial entrepreneur. For over 10 years, he was CEO of a groundbreaking fashion e-commerce company, and now he is in the fine dining business as proprietor of the award-winning restaurant, The Chateau on the Lake in Bolton Landing, New York on Lake George, and the newly launched meal delivery business called Plate Prep. Two websites where you can find him. It is plateprep.com and chateauonthelake.com. So first, we have two different businesses here. First, tell us about your restaurant, The Chateau on the Lake.
The Chateau on the Lake is a fine dining restaurant located on Lake George in Bolton Landing, which is in the Adirondack Mountains. And we really go after the second homeowner. We're servicing the second homeowner on the lake and visitors to the region. So when someone wants to get their chef the night off, they come to the Chateau. We like to consider it an experience. Actually, our customers have done a better job at explaining it than we do. It's not a restaurant; it's an experience, is the saying. Mm-hmm. And it's casual lake life at its best. It's experiencing how we live on the lake.
Okay.
And going from cocktails to fire pits and roasting s'mores at the end of your meal.
That's nice. So as a restaurant owner, the Chateau on the Lake, prior to that, you were an e-commerce top-selling celebrity fashion and designer brands. Tell us about that business and how you parlayed that into your business as a restaurant owner.
Yeah, so back in 1997, we started a company called eFashion Solutions, which was the power behind the brands, is how we explained ourselves. So if you went to DKNY, Christian Louboutin, and then Baby Fat Urban Brands, and 100-plus brands in the late 90s to as recently as 4 years ago, we powered most of these brands. So what that means is we built the e-commerce platform and the hosting environments before the cloud existed, the marketing platforms pre-Facebook, and we serviced 100% of the brand's needs to sell direct to consumer. Designing the website, taking the pictures, writing the descriptions, answering the customer service calls, and shipping the products to the consumer. We built that to a $50 million plus business, exited it 4 years ago, and how we got into the restaurant space is I run at my kids. I grew up in a restaurant business, and I feel as though kids with work ethic is the future, right? It's the only way you're going to separate yourself. We're all sending our kids to great schools. They're all getting highly educated. And I wanted my kids to grow up like I did, working. And I have young kids. And one thing about the e-commerce business, as exciting as it was, is it's a lot of travel. You can't take your kids with you. But in the restaurant business, they're generally family-ran businesses with all hands on. So we decided to embark on the restaurant business. I've always been into culinary. My father actually prevented me from going to school, culinary school. He had a restaurant. I grew up in the business. And when I could do it right and do it as a passion versus a business, we did it. And it's been real fun.
So when exactly did you open the Chateau on the Lake? And then when did you parlay that into plateprep.com?
So we opened the Chateau on the Lake. We're going to finish our fourth year on August 2nd, and we embark on our fifth year. And it's a magical year in the restaurant business, 5 years. It's when you work it all out. And being on my background's e-commerce, and I've been in the internet space since the mid-'90s, it was a natural for us. We feel as though the meal delivery system is exploding online. Taking the decision out of all things being purchased, from food to beauty and beyond, we wanted to get involved in delivering a time savings system to executives and professionals that are busy running around. We feel as though the systems that are out there, from meals they're very time consuming, slicing and dicing and chopping. So plate prep, we take all that out. So you go from box to plate in 15 minutes, but the experience is a fine dining chef experience in your home that you prepare.
So plateprep.com, first of all, that's available anywhere in the United States. Tell people, we had a discussion before we started the call about how your plateprep.com is so very different than some of the other programs that people subscribe to for food service.
The biggest difference is the time. So we think in executive terms. We think in busy lifestyle terms. We're dragged and pulled in all sorts of directions. Kids' soccer games, sporting events, chorus and plays, and yet we got to run around and we got to pay for the bills. So going in home and preparing dinner and shopping for it, or if you got another system and you're receiving a box and opening up and slicing and dicing and chopping, that's a passion of cooking. We want to deliver a program for people who want to eat great food, but don't want to sit there and slice and dice and chop and spend 30 minutes to a half an hour before it's even on the table, because we don't have time. So we're going after the consumer that lacks time, has very busy lifestyles, but still want a great meal. And that's Plate Prep delivers. We prep all the ingredients, and the consumer plates it, right? So the biggest thing at a restaurant is prepping. You got to prep before dinner. You're not slicing and dicing your tomatoes for your sauce or for a recipe. They're in front of you in bins that you sliced an hour before dinner service started.
Right.
And that allows you to quickly feed consumers who come into your restaurant. So we take that same concept and ship it to you in a box. The protein needs to be cooked because we don't want it to be a leftover. But you're looking at, no more than 15 minutes, and you're eating a 5-star meal. So it's also a 5-star experience.
Right. So I'm on your website now. I know it's box to plate in 15 minutes. There's still a bunch of other ways that you're very different than the other food service programs. I have to admit, I haven't tried the other ones because I don't cook at all. But now I look at yours and I'm like, I could probably handle this one.
15 minutes you can definitely handle.
I could probably, I can turn on the stove.
Now it's just, can you give up the frozen microwave meals that you've been eating for the last 10 years?
But
Stacey, we're going to work on that.
Yes.
We'll get you off with the frozen meals.
But a couple of things that are different. You have a dinner party option, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free. Talk about some of the really unique options that you give to people.
Yeah, Stacey, great point. So the dinner party in a box gets delivered to you. It's something I did when I was living down in Jersey running my internet company. We had the restaurant. I wanted to throw a dinner party, and my chef prepped it all. I brought it back to New Jersey, threw a dinner party, and the plate art and the way the food looked and tasted was as if I had a 5-star chef in my kitchen. The reality is I did. It was in my kitchen at my restaurant, but I drove it to New Jersey to have a great party that weekend.
Right.
So that gave birth to the idea of plate prep. The other problems that we see is people have one child or one member that's a gluten, right? We are in a high-end restaurant. When you come into our restaurant, no matter what you want, we're going to give it to you. If you have a gluten issue, we're going to create a gluten dish. If you're a pescatarian, we're going to create, even though it's not on the menu, we're chefs, we're high service, we're high end. You get anything you want when you walk into the Chateau on the Lake. So why not take that same concept and a high level of service and create that into a food delivery system? So instead of worrying about ordering a meal plan and say, okay, vegan. Other meal plans, when you click vegan, all 4 dishes for your family are going to be vegan. Our system allows you to say, I want 1 vegan dish and then 3 non-restrictive dishes.
Wow. And
you select your proteins, and that happens. So it's down to the individual, just like you would in a restaurant. Other things that we also do, a lot of other meal plans state they never repeat their dishes. Well, a lot of my customers that come to my restaurant come in for the same meal once a week.
Right.
They want the rack of lamb. They want the Colorado beef steak. They want the same meal. So we give the customer the option. You want the same dish shipped to you every week? Well, we don't need to change it up. We want you to be happy and get what you want. And then finally, the quality of our food. Our food's 100% organic. It's GMO free. It's not. We're a little bit more expensive because it's a higher end food experience.
Right.
So it's food that's high end, but also plating, plate art. Chefs in fine dining restaurants pride themselves on how the dish looks. When people walk into our restaurant, they most often say, "I'm afraid to eat this. It looks too good."
Mm-hmm.
That's what we also want at home. So we have full instructions that are shipped with the box that show you how to plate your dinner, which is just as important as cooking it, because it goes from, it's an experience. Food, to me, is an experience. It's not just eating. And whether you're at a restaurant or you're at home, it should just be an incredible experience that's memorable. And that's the difference between our system and what's out there. It's a memorable food experience. It's time savings, and it's completely custom with very high-end products.
Right. And I'm on the site right now, and for anybody that just tuned in, it's plateprep.com. And it looks like you have options for families with kids, dietary options, you have wine pairing. Like, you have figured it all out, and the pricing is incredible. Seems like you can't even go out to eat for the same price. And you can have it all delivered to your house for less than what it would cost to go out to a fine dining restaurant.
Yeah. I also like what you said about repeating meals, because my wife and I have tried a couple of the other services, and that's one of my biggest complaints is you have a meal that's awesome and you can never get it again.
Right. And
Makes no
you
sense.
learned how to cook it.
Yeah.
So you took the learning curve out of it, and now I got to learn it all over again next week.
Yes.
Yep. And it was we are creatures of habit. Listen, the other food systems do a great job for people who want to spend an hour and a half in the kitchen.
Right.
It takes away the grocery shopping. So the other food systems take away the grocery shopping, which is fantastic. And the people who I love to cook, I do, but I love to cook before I had a lot going on, and my kids were at a certain age where I'm being tugged in all these different directions, and I got phone calls and consulting, and I got appointments in business. We're busier, and we're getting busier and busier by the day. And the people that my peers, what we all complain about is there's no technology out there to extend the clock. The clock is never going to go past 24 hours, no matter what we do. So investing in creating things that save busy people time, right? So we want to save time. If that means also shipping you the same dish every because you loved it and you now know how to prepare it, maybe the 15 minutes from box to plate goes down to 10 minutes or 9 minutes because now you're not reading prepared instructions. So it's all about saving you time and giving you great food. So it's not about cooking for an hour and a half in your kitchen. My mother-in-law is up actually at our lake house. She's been here for 3 days. She hasn't stopped cooking since she got here. That's what she does. That's what she loves to do. And by the way, that benefits me. But that's another story because I love to eat. But that's her. So plate prep doesn't appeal to her because she doesn't understand why you wouldn't want to cook for 2 hours. We understand that. We want to eat. We want to have a great meal, but we don't want to spend the entire evening doing it because we don't have enough time together as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we only have 4 minutes left, and my question for you comes down to being an entrepreneur because I love everything that your website has. I'm going to, after today's call, I'm going to go on and make an order just to try it since it sounds like it's easy enough. I literally have not turned on my stove in at least 5 years.
Don't lie.
At
You haven't
least
turned it on
5
since you bought
years.
the house.
I do have a little kid, but thankfully my mother feeds her before I pick her up every day.
That works.
So, but what's interesting to me about you as an entrepreneur is so many people would never even want to get into this business only because it seems like massive amounts of competition. So how do you make sure that you get heard as far as a business when you have some really big brands that have come up out of nowhere and they're doing television ads, etc.?
Well, I think that as an entrepreneur, I'm always positive, right? The glass is always half full. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that I know what's ahead, and I know it's going to be challenging ahead. But as I'm creating it, I've got so much passion for what I'm doing. I'm blinded by the obstacles, but eventually you get sober and you're hit with the obstacles. Like, this is definitely a difficult business. There's no doubt about it. And I've already been in the e-commerce business since the mid-'90s. And I've got a great restaurant. I don't need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as an entrepreneur, we normally just we can't sleep at night without. When you can't sleep over something that you're pondering, you have to do it.
Right.
And I know I love food, I love saving people time, and I have passion for business. So that's my what. When you know your what, your how doesn't matter. So however I have to execute this, whatever investments I need to make, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run through. I run through, and I think most entrepreneurs that I know, we run through obstacles. We don't spend a lot of time analyzing them.
Right.
We run through them, and whatever's on the other side of that wall, we deal with it. And that's something I haven't been able to get out of my system. I'm 46 years old. I started my first business when I was in my mid-20s. Inc. 500 company, entrepreneur finalist of the year 2 years in a row in New Jersey. I can't. It's in me. I can't escape it. And I am embracing it instead of fighting it.
Wow.
Interesting.
Awesome stuff. This is Edward Foy Jr. He is the entrepreneur behind plateprep.com and chateauonthelake.com. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your wisdom on entrepreneurship and cooking and e-commerce. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.
My pleasure. Let's do a promo. We'll call the promo code Stacy.
Done.
It'll be 25% off all your listeners' first order.
Wow. EY.
Excellent.
Stacy EY.
Excellent. That's
All
the
right.
promo code, everybody. Stacy.
Awesome. Thank
Great.
you so much.
Awesome.
We're going to take a quick
Excellent.
commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.